Well, okay. Jon Fernandez, GDOE superintendent. Obviously, we're less than a week from the resumption of face-to-face learning. Where are we in terms of preparations for that, John?
We're ready to go. I mean, at this, I think we spent so much time preparing and monitoring all the requirements for operating safely and working with the doctors and public health and the governor's office to ensure that we took an approach that was pretty conservative. And we're not forcing anybody back to school. But we are intent to try to serve those families who do want to return to face-to-face instruction, because we know that those families that are opting to do so are going to be many of those families that need that face-to-face instruction for their particular situation where hard copy and online learning and just isn't available or isn't working for them. So it's a lot of balancing that we're doing across the board, where we do want to keep our employees and students safe, but also allow for a limited and gradual reopening of schools. Now that the community is in a much safer position. I just looked at our 14-day positivity rate, and we're down to about 2.7%, which is really the best we've been in a long time, actually since the summer. And we just hope that community as a whole continues to just practice those safe practices so we can maintain and sustain this improvement going forward. And with the vaccinations starting to expand and accelerate, hopefully that will help us get through the rest of this pandemic situation. So we're really we're thankful for everybody working together, and I'm really thankful that we don't have that as big a debate as we're having in the mainland and certain states about wearing masks and physical distancing and all that. I mean, I know that we're not all happy with the situation, but at the same time, we recognize that other communities, there are deeper divides and deeper disagreements that really are affecting their abilities to maintain these improvements. So we're at 2.7%. I know the governor is looking at further expansion of our reopenings for the community and as well as schools. And we'll continue to monitor and take a very conservative approach to the reopening of schools. Now, I know you just had our Catholic school partners online and our private schools. They're all going to be taking an approach that they deem to be safe for their families and effective for their families. We're going to do the same based on what we've been hearing from our parents, our teachers, and our students. So we're ready to go. I mean, obviously we're still concluding the last bits of training, student and parent orientations this week. And we know that there are a lot of questions that may come up and still need to be resolved and answered. But for the most part, all the things that we've put in place are, pursuant to public health and CDC guidelines. We are working to ensure that we can maintain and enforce all of the requirements: face masks, social distancing, the physical, cleaning and disinfecting, and that we have a good response mechanism should there be any situations that affect our schools. So I'm confident that we'll be ready to go. And we're working with DPW. Their bus schedule should be out this weekend. They're going to be running the same bus schedule, same time, same pickups. It'll just be on those days that the students go to school that they need to show up at the bus stop. And we'll continue to work with these because there are limited numbers returning to school. Right? That's going to give us a really good opportunity to monitor, review, and modify all of our procedures as we see fit. With students back on campus.
John, just rewinding to the your private school partners, both Temo and Dr. Juan had talked about delays in receiving laptops or other types of COVID mitigation equipment from your department. Do you care to provide an update on that?
Well, I don't know about, I would call them delays. I mean, we're working closely with them, and they understand that this is not something that these aren't funds that they can just take and go to the nearest store and buy all the equipment that they need. There is a procurement process that has to be put in place. I understand it as well. I mean, it doesn't happen at the snap of a finger. I'm meeting weekly with our teams to make sure there aren't any unreasonable delays in what's going on, but there are publication requirements, there are quotations, you got to get quotations, you got to compete it out for vendors. We have to ensure that it meets the requirements of our solicitation. We have to award it. Sometimes they have to go through the contracting process for signatures from the AG and governor, and all of those are requirements in order to ensure accountability. So I am happy, and we can talk a little bit about that. There is a new stream of funding that will be coming into the department, and I'm asking the U.S. DOE for guidance on how to address some of the concerns of our private schools. We know that on Guam, we're actually pretty generous to the PNP schools. What I understand is that all states pretty much reserve their federal funds only for those students in the private nonprofit schools who are eligible for Title I support, which are really our low-income students. We don't do that here. We actually divide the resources up based on enrollment, and we've been allowed to do that by US DOE. But the other states have pushed back. So what happened in this round is that there actually is a set aside in most states for private schools that they've placed in the governor's pot of funding, so that the governor can deal directly with the private schools, and then the private schools can deal with the governor and the governor's procurement process to get their resources directly. So I'm going to push for that so that we don't have to, I don't want to feel like we're delaying anything on their behalf. And hopefully, if that's the case, then they can work directly with the governor and GSA, to get their supplies and equipment in more expeditiously. So that's all I can say. But at this point, I think we've delivered all the PPEs. We're in the same boat in terms of laptops, waiting for the supply to come in. We're waiting for hand washing stations and water bottle filling stations that we ordered back in August, but are still coming in because of the demand for this type of equipment. And those will be coming in, and by the end of January, we're hoping to be able to distribute and get all that out to not just to our private nonprofit schools, but also to our public schools as well. So when it comes to procurement, we're all in the same boat. But again, it's federal funds, so we don't want to play around, with those dollars.
The virtual town hall meeting, right? It's Thursday, and this is just for GDOE employees. Say, for example, some of the private schools wanted to jump into the Zoom room. Would they be able to?
I believe. We're going to be on Facebook Live as well. So we have a Zoom. We're limited to about 500 on Zoom, and then for anybody, the general public, they also can go to our Facebook page and watch it live. It'll be live streamed, so we can reach more than the 500 limit that we have on our Zoom. So it's open to the public. And basically, we met yesterday with Lieutenant Governor and with Dr. Felix Cabrera, Dr. Luis Cruz about the vaccination strategy and whether or not we would be able to allow our educators to move up into to move forward in the priority list, because my understanding is that we're at tier 2 and they're still getting through the 1C and the various age groupings and the comorbidities, and that'll help some of our employees already. But we did want to move to that second tier and be able to facilitate more of a mass vaccination for those frontline educators and school staff. So based on the information that we received, although they are all dependent on the supplies that come in and the shipments of doses that come in, contingent on that supply coming in, they do feel confident that we'll be able to shortly initiate that vaccination drive for school employees, which includes teachers and staff. It could be as early as next week, and obviously has to, again, depending on working out the logistics and having the doses available. I think it's likely to be the Moderna vaccine, which is the vaccine that will be coming in much larger supply. And so I think their willingness and their actually, it was their idea to go ahead and have that town hall now, because they do feel pretty confident that we'll be able to shortly begin that process. So I'm happy. We wanted to nail down the date and time during the meeting, so we could announce it. So 2 p.m. it'll be an opportunity on Thursday to just inform, just like with the prior town hall, inform the community about the vaccines, what to expect, answer questions, try to allay some of the anxieties and concerns that might be there in the community. and just further educate them about what the vaccines are and what they will do and what maybe the side effects could be. And then hopefully, I know that the intent is to try to get as many individuals interested and willing to avail themselves of that opportunity to be vaccinated.
Were private schools, did they participate in that meeting with Dr. Cabrera and Dr. Cruz?
No, I believe they're having their own conversations directly with the Lieutenant Governor and Public Health. So this is really GDOE and our weekly meetings. I think part of that is because we have 4,000 employees and 28,000 students. So when we implement a strategy, it really isn't a school strategy. It is a community strategy. We're affecting a large segment of the community. So if we can make it work, we're actually going to be substantially supporting public health in its efforts, because we're going to, if we can implement this across 41 schools, we will do what we need to do to make that happen. So I think they're looking at it not really as just an education set aside strategy, but really a core part of the public health, plan. And I think that's appropriate given the breadth and the reach of our agency. So again, we have the ability to just really pull all our staff and employees to support the effort, make sure that we can make it work once the vaccines are available. We will need, we can't do it alone. Of course, we will need public health, to be there to supervise and help ensure everything is, attended to from the health side. But we have our school nurses, we have school staff, we have the ability to, to help organize and coordinate our school responses so that we can make employees, give employees the time to go and get that vaccine and start that process. So we're really looking forward to it, because again, we do believe that it'll help us in our mission, but it'll help the community as a whole.
As per the governor's executive order, home visitations, the social workers, things like that, they were able to resume going out into the community. So for the Department of Education, where are you in reaching those students that are unaccounted for?
I'm really happy that we got that authorization, because the team went right away. They got right to work. So a few days later, I asked them, I said, can we get together and plan, what we're going to do to get, take care of these numbers? And they said, well, we already went out. So I said, okay, well, that's great. And they had already brought the number down to about 200 students. So I said, okay, keep going. Just do what you need to do. So we were at about 550. We were kind of stuck at about 550. My understanding is that of that number, there's probably about 50 students that we're still working on to reach. We have a number of students who we've been able to reconnect to school. Some of them may have just moved to another location and we're awaiting registration. Some of them are willing to come back because of face-to-face, and buses will now be available for transportation. And then there are numbers, I don't have the final numbers, but there was a segment of that population that's really just relocated off island, and nobody has been able to track them, but they've relocated off island. We've been informed by going out to the homes. Neighbors will say, this is what happened to the families, and we got a better picture as to what's going on. So that gives me a lot more assurance. We still have a little bit more to do to get those remaining 50 students, but it gives me, again, a lot more assurance that we're reaching out all of our kids and have a better picture as to what's going on with those who are not in communication with their schools and haven't been, since the beginning of the school year.
Can you give us an update on the status of the Wi-Fi zones and that conversation?
Yeah, it's in the procurement process right now. So we have to, give some time for the vendors to respond and be able to award it. So, it's really tough. We've learned all the hoops that have to go in, to doing this. Even though the money comes from one department, because it's going to the governor and going to US, to GDOE, we've had to reconfirm a lot of the information and as it applies to both. We had to execute an MOU. We had to set up different accounts to make sure it is just, we're going to have to review how we do this going forward, because just a lot of the hoops and hurdles. Yeah. So we're waiting for the MOU is actually still being reviewed by the AG. We met with the AG on Friday and said, please finalize that, because we need that to award the contract. But all these things that we need to go through, we're just overly, just a lot of hoops because of the nature of how that money was divided. So we'll continue to work together, but it's taken a lot of time to get through those hurdles.
Man, too bad you can't use that emergency health superpowers fast track thingamabob.
But I think because these are federal, again, this is because of the federal requirements, is that
Right.
they don't really like to see a lot of those emergency, if avoidable, because they really want to see competition.
Of
But
course.
at the same time, I think the other flip side of this is that with the new the new bill that was the relief bill that was passed, not only are we going to get additional resources for education from the federal government, we also have more relief on the extension of time to be able to use the funds. So where the funds were going to expire in September, we now have more of an opportunity to use those funds beyond the initial deadline. So that'll be a really good opportunity for us to continue to stretch those dollars and continue the supports for our students.
That extra CARES Act money, 140, 30 to the governor's office. So whatever the balance is, I'm not really good with math. Do you guys have to go through the same process from the last time with the education stabilization funds, where you present the plan and the plan gets approved by USDOE?
Yeah, we're gonna need to verify that. So the way it all works is that we're not treated exactly like a state. So when they set aside money for education, they do a set aside and they say this is for the outlying areas that'll be split up between the Virgin Islands and Guam and CNMI and Samoa, American Samoa. So they set that up so that and then they deal with the states, and sometimes the rules don't line up. They don't quite line up for the the outlying areas versus the state. So there are some things we need to clarify. So right now we understand that they're trying to streamline everything so that the same rules, same parameters should apply. There's not going to be a need to go through some of those initial applications and approvals. But on the other hand, there were some major changes in how the states were treated that we want to verify. Like I mentioned, earlier there was a battle between USDOE and the states about equitable services for private nonprofit schools. From within the money that was given to the education department. In this bill, there's a set aside for private schools in the governor's funds, and we want to make sure we're clear as to how that's going to work for outlying areas. For GDOE, it would be beneficial because then it would, and for the private schools, I guess it would be very beneficial. So there won't be any sense that anyone is getting prioritized over the other, and it'll give us a better line of authority over the funds. But as it stands right now, 110 million is being awarded to the Guam Department of Education as the state education agency, and the remainder of that, $33 million, is to the governor for educational purposes. And again, for the governor, there's more flexibility, and she can assist with higher education, early childhood, education, and then K to 12, as well as with the charters and private schools. And for us, we go from K to 12 within the parameters that we discussed earlier with the first round of CARES funding. It is meant to be a CARES COVID-19, response and recovery, a stream of funds. But I think with the first round of CARES, we were really focused on that immediate response and transition into distance learning, and helping improve the safety of our schools. I think with the second round, we're going to be looking at sustaining those improvements over the foreseeable future while we're still in this pandemic. So that'll help us with a little bit more medium and long-term strategies to assist our schools. And so we welcome those funds from the federal government to support our efforts.
Does this 110.5 million have to be spent within a specific time frame?
There is a time frame. I have to reconfirm, because there was a lot of back and forth. So I haven't actually seen all the details yet beyond the initial announcement, but we'll be sitting down this week. Usually what we'll do is compile all the remaining questions and clarification that we're going to need so we can have USDOE just weigh in and make sure we're clear on all the details. And then we'll be better informed as to how we can spend the funds. But I do know that where we thought that September 2021 was going to be the deadline for use of the funds, we now know that because of the additional funds, there will be an additional time frame to really make the investments needed to ensure the safety of our schools.
All right.
Hey, John, Jason here. Real quick, I got a question for you because I remember going back to when you joined us several weeks ago when you said either public health and or Adaloop approached you about possibly using Okkodo as a distribution site for the vaccine, and you said immediately, you said, yes, by all means, we'll get it ready for you and everything. Obviously, with the return to campus learning in any capacity, that's going to have to stop as a distribution center. So are you guys getting out, or is public health getting the campus, sanitized and disinfected and ready for the return? And has there been any sort of hint to you in where that traffic that normally would go to Okkodo would go somewhere else?
Well, I think the way we've structured, again, our starting point for face-to-face instruction is, again, it's just a starting point, but it allows us, the way we've structured our week, to have a couple of days during the week, which is really dedicated to online instruction, so that we can minimize the presence of our students and faculty on campus. And that could potentially make Okkodo and other facilities available for any testing or vaccine drive that are needed. Now, our effort, of course, is to support public health in the immunization, in the vaccinations and the testing, and of course, to allow our employees to participate in that. So we really do have the interests of our employees and our community involved in that as well. But my understanding is also that because of the Moderna vaccine coming in, and because of I guess my understanding is that there's not the same requirement for the temperature holds for this round of vaccines, that they're able to do a much broader distribution strategy for the vaccination, which is why the clinics are now being involved, and potentially other partners, so that there isn't going to need to be one centralized location. So we'll work with public health on that, and we said, look, we can, when it comes to our stakeholders, we're happy to support it. If it's regional, we're happy to be there. If you want to set aside certain days for certain parts of the community, including our educators and our school staff, we will work with you. But again, it's in our interest as a school system to participate with public health, because what we can do for the community, what we can do for our school community, they're all intertwined together because of the size and breadth of our agency. So Okkodo will continue when it's available, but we really are trying to sit down with public health and craft a longer term plan, which looks broader than just Okkodo, because we know some of the challenges that have been, that we've been facing over there due to the demand and the centralized nature of their vaccination plan.
All right, well done. So hopefully, thank you, John.
Thank you, Jason. John, did you want to talk a little bit about the GNOC partnership that you guys are doing for the sports?
Right. So we're moving forward, and we don't have an explicit authorization yet from the governor. So we continue to remain in touch with them. But again, because something like interscholastic sports takes preparation and planning in advance of the first day of practice, we wanted to go ahead and put a plan in place, share that plan, and allow for all of our athletes and coaches just to be ready, and hopefully our athletes start conditioning and making sure they're not just trying to transition from online learning to full out competition. So as part of that, we've been working with GNOC as well as with our island-wide sports league that's run by GDOE to provide a level of support and training and professional development to our coaches, our athletes, and our athletic directors and so forth. So the coming opportunity of GNOC is just a continuation of that. Of course, we're now in a COVID-19 year, so a lot of the strategy, a lot of the awareness, the event that's going to take place will be focused on safety, in the coming out of this COVID-19 pandemic situation. So it'll be available for our coaches and athletes to participate in, and we're really thankful for GNOC really stepping up and being a strong partner like they have been this last year, and then going forward just to help us develop and improve our preparation for competition within our our school system, and then beyond after graduation. So we look forward to them continuing that partnership, and it's just another resource for our athletes and our coaches interested in coming back for competition this year.
John, how challenging is that going to be? Because we understand that there's no funding for sports in the budget.
Well, our board has, yesterday in our meeting with the legislature, our vice chairman. I know our chairwoman is on here as well. They both made it a priority to ask for the necessary resources to be restored so we can fund our interscholastic sports for the remainder of the year. So our education chair, Talina Nelson, did indicate that she would like to address that. So we will be sending a letter over the next couple of days to clarify the costs that we anticipate for the remainder of the school year to run interscholastic sports, pay for officials, and hopefully they'll be able to provide those resources to GDOE.
All right, thanks, John. Also, good job on those safety videos.
Oh no, thank you
Yeah,
so
that's
much, and
pretty
see
clever.
our student chairwoman lined up for next, so I want to wish them good luck as well. You guys do a great job, I'm sure.
I want to see you do the, put on the life vest. It's located under your seat, and
Do not
I'm glad that
Cough.
you went with someone else.
stay 6 feet apart.
thank you, John. Appreciate it. Anything in closing? Because I don't know if we're going to get you on before the first day of school. I mean, I'd love to get you on the first day of school if we could do that, but if not,
Well, we'll do what we can, that first day, first week of school. But, again, for those parents who are ready for, school, the bus schedules will be out this weekend. That's probably the biggest component that's coming out. And then, of course, for the general community, next week when we start school, be aware that those buses will be out there again. And we want everyone to drive safely and help keep our students safe, during the first couple of weeks of school as we get started again and you start to see those school buses back on the road.
okay. You good?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. There you go, Jon Fernandez, Guam Department of Education Superintendent. We'll take a really quick break, and we're coming back with IBOX, the Island Board of Governing Students. They'll be joined by their advisor, Board of Education Chair, Ms. Maria Gutierrez. Also on the way on the show, Cyrus Lura, Guam Animals in Need. We'll catch up with him and talk about that whole stray dog program that they're trying to roll out with the Department of Agriculture. And also there was that latest case that we were reported on where a man allegedly tried to beat a dog to death in the Agania area, right? So we'll talk to him about that.
With a log, I believe, right?
With the